In the heart of an ancient forest, hidden so deeply that most maps dared not picture it, lay a kingdom unlike any other. Tall oaks guarded it like patient soldiers, their branches intertwined to form majestic arches that whispered stories whenever the wind passed through. Sunlight often trickled down in golden beams, and flowers bloomed in endless colors: crimson, amber, violet, and blue, each seeming to glow with its own quiet magic. Within this peaceful land stood a grand stone palace, with tall windows that caught the sunrise each morning. Inside lived the royal family, a kind but stern king, a gentle queen, and their cherished daughter, the young Princess Elena. Princess Elena was known far and wide for her kindness and beauty. Her laughter was as bright as the morning bells, and her hair shimmered like strands of sunlight. Her eyes, clear, blue, and full of curiosity, seemed to capture the whole sky inside them. But what made her most beloved was her tender heart. She smiled easily, forgave quickly, and loved anything that sparkled, sang, or shone. Among all her treasures, one object stood above the rest. Her golden ball dot. It was smooth, round, and heavy, polished so perfectly that it reflected her face like a tiny sun. The king had given it to her when she turned 7, and she loved it more with each passing year. Every morning when her lessons were done, after she had practiced her handwriting, reviewed her geography, and listened to her tutor recite long stories about kings, queens, and ancient wars, she would hurry to the palace gardens with her golden ball cradled in her hands. The garden was a paradise of roses, lilacs, and sprawling greenery. Birds perched in flowering trees, filling the air with songs sweeter than flutes. At the far end of the garden stood a deep stone well. Moss covered its sides, and cool mist always drifted from its mouth, as if the well breathed softly. Elena loved it there. She threw her ball into the air and watched it sparkle like a falling star. She caught it again and again, her laughter echoing through the garden, merging with birdsong. One warm afternoon, when the sun was beginning to slide toward the west, Elena tossed the golden ball a little higher than usual. It spun in the air, flashed brilliantly, and then dipped to the side. She reached for it, but her fingertips brushed only empty air. The ball bounced once on the mossy stones that ringed the old well, and then, before Elena could lunge for it, rolled off the edge. There was a soft clink, a small pause, and then splash. Elena froze. Her heart dropped as fast as the ball had. She leaned over the well, straining to see anything at all. But the bottom was swallowed in darkness. The water below was silent, still, and impossibly deep. "My golden ball," she whispered. Then louder, her voice breaking. "Oh, my beautiful golden ball, if only I could have you back again. I would give anything in the world." Tears welled up, spilling down her cheeks as she sobbed beside the old stone well. As her cries trembled through the air, a rustling sound drifted from below. The water rippled, and out of the darkness came a croaking voice. "Why do you weep so, princess?" Elena gasped and stumbled back. Who said that?" Another croak answered, this time closer. From the shadowy water, a small green shape rose. A frog, bright-eyed and strangely calm, lifted its head above the well's surface. Water droplets glistened on its smooth skin. "Why do you cry so bitterly?" The frog repeated. She blinked at him, astonished. "My golden ball fell into the well. It was my favorite treasure in all the world, and now it is lost forever." The frog tilted his head. "I can fetch it for you." Elena's tears paused. "You can?" "Yes," the frog replied simply. "My legs are strong, and I am not troubled by deep water. But if I bring it to you, what will you give me in return?" I can give you jewels." She stammered. "Pearls, ribbons, fine silk, even my golden crown." The frog blinked slowly. "I have no use for jewels, princess. But I will ask this instead. If you will promise to let me be your companion, if you will let me sit beside you at your table, eat from your plate, drink from your cup, and sleep upon your bed, then I will dive down and bring back your ball." Elena shuddered. Sit beside her? Eat from her plate? Sleep on her pillow? This was absurd. Impossible. The frog was slimy and strange, and certainly not someone she wished to share a meal, let alone a bed, with, but her golden ball. She swallowed hard and forced a smile. Yes, I promise. Whatever you ask. Just please bring me my ball." Again. The frog gazed at her for a long moment, as if reading her face. Then, with a small nod, he dove back under. The water rippled. A few seconds passed. Then a minute. Elena shifted nervously. What if the frog couldn't really retrieve it? What if a glint of gold appeared? The frog surfaced again, pushing the golden ball up with his head. It shimmered and shone as beautifully as ever. My ball! Elena cried. She grabbed it from the frog's reach and clutched it to her chest. Without another glance, without offering thanks or waiting even one moment, she turned and ran as fast as she could toward the palace. Behind her, a small voice called, Princess! Wait! Take me with you as you promised. But Elena didn't stop. Didn't slow. Didn't look back. She ran until the frog's voice faded away into the rustle of the forest and the whisper of the wind. That evening, the royal family gathered in the great hall for dinner. The king sat at the head of the long wooden table. The queen beside him and Elena in her usual place, her golden ball resting safely on the table near her. The candles glowed softly, filling the hall with warm light. Servants moved quietly, placing platters of roasted chicken, fresh bread, and delicate vegetables before them. Just as Elena lifted her fork to take her first bite. Knock. A slow, deliberate knock echoed through the hall. She frowned. At this hour, who could it be? Knocked out again. The sound came, louder this time. Go and see who stands at the door. The king commanded gently. Elena rose reluctantly, dread pooling in her stomach. She crossed the hall, pushed open the heavy door, and froze. There, on the stone steps, sat the frog. His skin glistened faintly in the torchlight. His eyes, wide and unblinking, looked directly into hers. Princess, he croaked, open the door. Do you not remember your promise by the well? You said I could sit with you and eat from your plate. Elena slammed the door shut so fast that the sound echoed like thunder. She pressed her back against it, pale. Her heart pounded wildly. What troubles you, my daughter? Asked the king. There is a frog outside, she stammered. He says he helped me retrieve my golden ball and that I promised he could be my companion. But I do not want him here, father. He is a frog, cold and slimy and strange. The king's eyes soft, but his voice was firm. My child, a princess, must always keep her word even to a frog. Elena shook her head vigorously. But father, I didn't think. It does not matter what you thought, the king said. Only what you promised. Her shoulders slumped. There was no escaping it. Trembling, she opened the door once more. Come in, she whispered. The frog hopped across the marble floor, little wet footprints trailing behind him until he reached the royal table. Lift me up beside you, he said. Her cheeks burned with shame and disgust, but she obeyed. Once seated, he looked up at her plate. Push it closer so that I may eat as you do. Elena hesitated, but the king gave her a quiet, steady nod. She pushed the plate toward the frog. He ate greedily, snatching bites with his small mouth. He drank from her goblet, leaving tiny spots of water on the crisp white linen. The princess clenched her fists under the table, wishing the ordeal would end. But the frog wasn't finished. When dinner was done, he croaked softly. I am weary now. Take me to your chamber so I may sleep upon your bed. Elena stood abruptly. Father! Must I truly allow this creature to sleep near me? The king met her gaze with gentle seriousness. A promise must be kept, my daughter. Her throat tightened. She wanted to protest, to refuse, to run away to some distant corner of the palace and hide. But she could not disobey her father, and she could not break her word, not again. Slowly, and with a heavy heart, she picked up the frog and carried him up the winding staircase toward her room. Elena entered her chamber and closed the door with a quiet sigh. Her room was spacious and warm, filled with soft drapes, carved wooden furniture, and shelves filled with childhood trinkets. The large canopy bed, covered with embroidered blankets, looked inviting, but not with a frog nearby. She placed the frog gently on a velvet cushion beside her bed. There, she whispered hesitantly, that is your place for the night. The frog blinked. She lay down, pulling the blankets up too. Her chin, hoping desperately he would fall asleep quickly. Moments later, his voice drifted up. I am lonely down here. Elena's eyes opened slowly. dread returning. "Kiss me good night, princess," he said softly, "as you would a dear companion." Her whole body tensed. I cannot, you are a frog. But you promised to treat me as your companion." Her father's words echoed in her mind. A princess must keep her word. Elena closed her eyes tightly. "Very well," she whispered shakily. She leaned forward. Her heart pounded, her stomach twisted. But she pressed her lips gently to the frog's cool DMP skin. A brilliant flash of light filled the room. Elena gasped and stumbled backward. The frog was gone, and in his place stood a young man, tall, noble, and handsome, clothed in garments finer than silk dot. His eyes shone with gratitude and warmth. Who are you?" Elena breathed. The young man bowed deeply. "I was a prince of a distant kingdom, cursed by a wicked witch to live as a frog until a princess honored her word and kissed me. You have lifted that curse." Elena stared at him in disbelief and then awe. He smiled. "Princess, will you come with me to my kingdom and be my queen?" She hesitated only for a moment. "Yes," she said softly. "I will." The next morning, sunlight streamed through Elena's windows. A grand carriage arrived at the palace gates, drawn by magnificent white horses. Driving it was a young man clothed in sturdy dark garments. Iron Heinrich Dot, he was the prince's most loyal servant, known across his kingdom for devotion so deep that when his master had been cursed, he feared his own heart would break from sorrow. To prevent this, he had bound it with 3 iron bands. Now those bands pressed tightly still, but he greeted the prince with joy that shone brighter than the morning sun. The king placed his hands gently on Elena's shoulders. "Go well, my child," he said softly, "and remember always to honor your word." Elena embraced her parents one last time, then entered the carriage beside the Prince. As the horses trotted forward, a sudden snap echoed within the carriage. Elena startled. "What was that?" Another snap, louder this time. The prince chuckled softly. "Do not be afraid. It is only Heinrich. His heart is so full of happiness that the iron bands around it are breaking." Outside, Heinrich nodded, smiling as tears streamed down his cheeks. Once, he had feared losing his master forever. Now, joy broke the iron. Chapter 6. A New Beginning. The journey was long, but filled with laughter, shared stories, and the warmth of something new growing between the prince and the princess. When they reached his kingdom, they were greeted with celebration. Bells rang, banners waved, and people lined the streets cheering for their returned prince and the brave princes who had freed him in time. They were married in a grand ceremony filled with music, flowers, and the blessings of both kingdoms. Elena learned to rule with wisdom and kindness. She kept her word, honored her promises, and remained as gentle-hearted as the day she had played beside the forest well. And the prince, once a frog, now restored, never forgot the courage and honesty that set him free. Together they ruled, with love, compassion, and understanding, and they lived just as the story says, happily ever after.